welcome to Brain Chat. I'm Dr. Mitzi Joy Williams, your board-certified neurologist and MS specialist, and my mission is to engage, educate, and empower those affected by MS to become an active part of their healthcare team. Here on Brain Chat, we'll be discussing all things MS, health and wellness, advocacy, and we'll even throw a little bit of music and music therapy in there as well. Thank you so much for joining us, and stay tuned for the next episode. Happy Monday, everybody, and welcome to Brain Chat. I am so excited to be here with you guys on this Monday evening with some amazing guests who are going to share their experience about MS and talk about advocacy in the MS space. So for those of you who don't know, I'm Dr. Mitzi. I'm the nerdy neurologist, and I'm a board-certified neurologist and MS specialist. My goal is really to empower people living with multiple sclerosis and other chronic diseases to be active parts of their healthcare team. And so for those of you who have not seen before, we have got some action-packed guests with us tonight, and I can't wait to get into it. For those who have not been on Brain Chat before, send us a message in the chat. Let us know where you are logging in from. I bid you greetings from Atlanta, Georgia, where it is a nice and cool 90-something degrees here. I'm being facetious, of course. But I hope that everybody's staying cool, and we will go ahead and get into it. So I will start by introducing my wonderful guest tonight. I've got three. So we've got a lot to cover in a short period of time. But we've got Ashley Ratcliffe, who is a best-selling author, communications professional, and invisible illness advocate and speaker. She was diagnosed with MS in March of 2018, and since then has used her voice to support and uplift those living with MS and other chronic illnesses. She published her first solo book called Jesus Year during the COVID-19 pandemic, and it is one of her proudest achievements. It's a self-help memoir about her MS journey, and became an Amazon bestseller in April 2021. And she also has an audiobook version of that. She currently serves as the Director of Communications and Operations with We Are Ill, a patient advocacy organization on a mission to redefine what sick looks like for Black women living with MS. All right. So we can't wait to hear from Ashley. All right. In addition, we have Stuart Schlossman, who is a returning guest on Brain Chat. He was just with us a couple months ago for the Fellas show, which was great. And he is the president and founder of MS Views and News. It's a non-for-profit 501c3 that provides educational information programs and services for the global multiple sclerosis community. To date, since its foundation in 2008, MS Views and News has provided over 1,000 live educational programs in the USA, both in person and virtually. He began his journey working with other organizations and co-facilitated a support group for over 10 years, and has been very active in fundraising for many MS organizations. And so very excited to have Stuart. And last but certainly not least, we've got Holly Schmidt, who I've been working with for some time as well. She is the Vice President of Scientific Operations at Accelerated Cure Project for Multiple Sclerosis. She co-chairs the research committee of iConquer MS, a virtual patient-powered research network for MS established to perform and support patient-centered research in MS. She works to promote patient engagement throughout the research process and develop collaboration on topics of interest to people living with MS. She founded and leads the MS Minority Research Engagement Partnership Network, and that's where we met and started having the opportunity to work together. And it's an initiative aimed at promoting racial and ethnic diversity in MS research studies. And she also provides direction of Accelerated Cure Project's MS repository, which provides highly characterized biospecimens from people with demyelinating diseases and controls to scientists worldwide. All right, so let's bring everyone to the stage. Welcome to Brain Chat, my friends.
Hi.
Hi there.
Thank you guys so much for coming to spend part of your Monday evening with us and inform the people. So I'm very, very excited about this conversation. So last episode we talked a little bit about some of the resources from our larger patient or large national advocacy organizations. But I think it's very important to know what's going on the ground, so to speak. What are the organizations that people living with MS are essentially kind of running and really helping kind of set the tone for, what are these organizations doing? And so how can people get involved? So I'm really excited because I've personally been able to work with each of you, so I won't steal any thunder. But why don't we just kind of start off with telling us a little bit, each of you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in the advocacy space. All right. And why don't we start with Holly, since she's the first one to my right here on the screen.
Thanks, Mitzi. Yeah, I've been working in the MS space for over 20 years now, and I got involved through a good friend of mine who was diagnosed with MS back in the year 2000, and he went on to found this organization, Accelerated Cure Project, the year after he was diagnosed. And at that point, he went around to each of his friends and said, "I'm going to start this thing." And I said, "Great, let me know how I can help." So initially I got involved as being an advisor and then on the board as a board member. But not too long after that, I got involved in the research work that Accelerated Cure Project was doing at the time. And then not long after that, in the year 2002, I joined as a full-time employee, and I've been doing this ever since, and have been so excited to see how much MS and the research and the breakthroughs, new advances in MS have occurred over that span of 20 years. And I'm really delighted to be here, Mitzi. So thank you for having me.
Awesome sauce. All right, let's go, Ashley.
Hi, Dr. Mitzi. Thanks so much for having me. So I was diagnosed with MS in March 2018, and it really threw me for a loop because I'd been healthy my whole life. And so just going through that process of getting a diagnosis, I was initially misdiagnosed as having a herniated disc in my L4, L5 spine. And I really had to advocate for myself because I wasn't getting better. And I ultimately got a second opinion, which led me to my diagnosis. And so I quickly learned the importance of advocating for myself. And after the initial shock wore off of, having a chronic illness for which there's not yet a cure, I sought out to find my tribe, and I found it through We Are Ill. And I would just go to like their meetups or just be a member of the Facebook group, the private Facebook group. And eventually Victoria and I formed a relationship, the founder and CEO of We Are Ill, and she invited me to be a member of the team. So I'm now the director of communications and operations with We Are Ill. And I'm really proud of the work that we do to make culturally conscious educational materials for people who look like us. So that's how I got started in the advocacy space.
Awesome. Stuart?
Gosh, thank you for that. So I was diagnosed in December 1998. And by the way, sorry for the horrendous lighting here, but I'm in a hotel in a little area of Mississippi. And
You got the mood lighting going on. We'll take it.
I guess they just don't know how to light up rooms around here, right? They want you out of the room and doing things. It's only 101 degrees here right now. It's okay. Yes, it's very hot. And it's it's after 6 o'clock at night, so it's still very hot. All right, so going back on things, I was diagnosed in December of 1998, and I found that I wasn't finding the information that I wanted to know about MS. What was wrong with me? The doctors didn't have time to spend with you, and nobody else was out there. So fortunately, I was very internet savvy, and I was able to get on the internet and find out what was wrong with myself. And then I started attending a support group and learning that nobody in the group really knew what the hell was wrong with themselves. So I was saying to them, let me check out, tell me what you want me to find on the internet for you, and I'll bring it back to you. And so little by little, I was doing this for this one large support group in Miami-Dade. And then support group leaders from around the state of Florida were finding out what I was doing and asked me if I could get it for them to, find what their people have, what's going on with them, what can they do, and what resources are there available. So So I started finding all these different things. Then I did some volunteer work with the National MS Society. I chaired their Coral Gables MS Walk for 5 years. And during those 5 years, I also chaired their Fort Lauderdale Walk for 2 of those 5 years. And, people were asking me, how do we find out what's wrong with us? And I said, you could ask me, but I don't have time to do this anymore. And at that time, I put a label on it. It was called Stu's Views and MS News.
I remember that. I used to
Right,
get the newsletter on my email.
right, and a lot of people do remember that. So too many people were asking us to find out how we can, get a program. And I tried speaking with the National MS Society, and they said that that's not what they do. And I spoke with other organizations, and they said that that's, they don't do this in Florida. So somebody from one of my walk teams and one of my committees said to me, hey, my husband's an attorney. Why don't we talk about forming an organization? And I said, because it seems like a lot of work. And sure enough, it is. And, when you got that note from me that we did over 1,000 programs, that was a few years back when I gave that to you. And now we've done over 1,500 educational programs to date.
Wow.
Last year, between the virtuals and the in-person programs, we were able to provide 112 events. And this year will be pretty much the same. And I'm sure next year will as well. And that's why I'm on the road all the time and having to stay at places like this. Okay?
Yeah, so we're going to get you a ring light to put on your laptop. We're going to get you a portable ring light.
I got to get something. I got to get a portable to go with me. I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
I can't find how to get rid of that light behind me, but there's something shining, There we go.
But I love hearing you talk about your experience, Stuart, because it really does underscore the impact of one person. And obviously, we know you have a team, you have many amazing people that work with you. But, whenever someone, is like, how can I make a difference?
That's right.
One person can make a difference, right? Particularly if they begin to surround themselves with other people who are like-minded and they see a need. I often tell, people that I encounter, if there's a need and you don't see it out there, you might be the one, to fulfill that need or to start that group or to start that organization or that thing to address that need. And so, that's something I really appreciate, about your journey and how you just really continue to grow and continue to educate the community,
That's right.
So it's extremely important.
True grassroots.
Absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about each of the organizations that you all work with. I know we kind of touched on it a little bit. We kind of touched on, a little bit of the mission, but let's just kind of go back around and do a round robin and tell us a little bit about, Stuart, tell us a little bit about MS Views and News, and then we'll go backwards to Ashley and then Holly.
So do we have an hour?
We do not. We have total. So you gotta give us the 50,000 foot view.
We'll do this. All right. So MS Views and News prides ourselves on these days being the leading MS organization providing events in rural and underserved communities throughout the United States. And when I say throughout, it's really not throughout because we cannot get everywhere. It's impossible to cover all the areas of the United States. If we were able to assemble all the MS organizations and all the pharmaceutical companies, I don't think that we could cover everywhere that needs to be covered. So we do the best we can. And we do that, again, we do our Compass MS Care series, which is Compass MS Care, Rural America and Underserved Communities. And we do that once or twice a month. And not only do we do those in person, but we also live stream these events as well. So we're not just picking up on whoever attends from the local audience, which is why I'm here in Jackson, Mississippi right now, but we'll also be online, for that. So we'll draw in another 60 to 100 online during the program. And then again, the thousands that watch it like your program as well, that follows that. In addition, though, we started a few of these virtual events during COVID, MS Views Now, which is talking about what's affecting the MS community now. And at the time it was, so we were talking about COVID and multiple sclerosis, and that went on for many, many months. Then we also did a program series during that time called the MS Hub, which is where we got the other MS organizations online, with us to talk about and to show the world what they're doing at that time. What are they doing for the MS community during COVID? But again, that still continues to what is happening in the world of MS now, and that's why it's called MS Views Now. Also, we do MS Neuro TV, which is all about symptoms, symptom management, devices, complementary therapies, complementary equipment. Last week we had on the founder of Psionic Sleeve, and that was something new to bring up and make sure that people know about it, and how can they find out more about this? In the future, we'll do something on what else is available for foot drop and many other things concerning, symptom management. We do things on health equities. We have our series coming up, which you're part of, the Exploring Diversity, that you and Sheila Thorne would be part of. We're doing another one with exploring, not exploring, but it's about clinical research trials and how to get, how to make them more equitable for everybody. We have a lot of virtual programs. We have physical therapy. We have Pilates. We have mental wellness chat every month. We have MS Conversations Now, Patients' Voices, which is me getting on the phone with somebody and interviewing MS patients that are doing things for themselves and for the MS community. So it shows the world that what they're doing, so that way people can see what they're doing. But it shows also the MS community that you can work. Just because you have this diagnosis doesn't mean take time out in your life and sit on the couch and wait for a cure to come along. No, we want you to see that people are doing things, and that's why I want to get hold of We Are Ill with MS and get all those people online and make it a big thing. Let everybody see what everybody's doing out there.
Yeah, I love it. The collaboration. So the focus is really education, education for the, patient community, education about treatments, education about, integrative medicine, complementary medicine, all of the things. So, that's extremely important. So Ashley, tell us a little bit about We Are Ill. So, I work with We Are Ill. I sit on the board. So I'm very familiar with the amazing work that Victoria and you and Lauren and others are doing. But tell those who are listening or watching a little bit about the focus of We Are Ill.
Yeah, simply put, We Are Ill aims to educate and empower Black women living with MS. A lot of times we don't see ourselves represented in other MS spaces. So that's why Victoria created We Are Ill, so that she could kind of be a light to that community. And we do a number of things for our community. We have a private Facebook group where our sisters in MS can ask questions and get support. It's very positive and encouraging. People ask questions about, I think I'm having a flare up. What do I do? We also host a annual wellness weekend, which is coming up in October. And that's our signature event. It's in Atlanta, October 20th to 22nd this year. And it's just a wonderful space for Black women living with MS. It's like a huge retreat where we get educated. We learn about balancing health and wellness. We provide resources and we build community. We also have a robust website where we have resources about MS and particularly how it pertains to Black women. We have a glossary of MS terms because honestly, it can be a little, it can be a lot when you are diagnosed with MS. What is a DMT? What's a MS hug? All those things come up and you don't have a frame of reference. And so we have all that information on our website. We host conversations. We host member meetups. We also create educational materials for MS Awareness Month in particular. We had a box that we gave to our community, and it had, in addition to like some goodies to help people thrive with MS, like a journal and affirmation cards and a pill pouch. We also created educational materials. We had conversations with MS specialists about kind of demystifying what clinical trials are, talked about self-advocacy. So we just strive to meet our members where they are and educate them and evolve with them as well. We have big plans to empower our community to be professional patients. That's a coin that Victoria termed. coined, and it's really about helping MS patients be the best that they can be by equipping them with everything that they need to know along their journey. So that's a little bit about We Are Ill. We do so much. I'm sure I forgot something, but that's just the gist of it.
That's a great start. Great start. All right, Holly, tell us a little bit about ACP and I Conquer MS.
Yeah, happy to. So we empower people living with MS to contribute to a brighter future for themselves and for other people through involvement in research. So Stuart, you mentioned, people are diagnosed, they don't have to sit back on the couch and wait for a cure. And that is so true. And you can also be involved in, the research that will eventually produce that cure, or up before that point, better options for people with MS, or better health and better quality of life. And so that's what our organization is all about, is helping people find ways to do that. So, we feel that every single person with MS can contribute, can participate in research in one way or the other. We launched a platform called I Conquer MS, and that's spelled ICONQUER MS. And it's online. So as long as you have an internet connection, you can go there, you can create an account, sign up, become a member. And once you've done that, you can take part in different types of research studies, depending on what you're interested in. You can learn about studies that are being conducted elsewhere, including clinical trials. And you can contribute your own research ideas. And you can also vote and comment on the ideas that other people propose. So you can not only just be a participant, but you can be a proposer, and you can be an influencer on what kinds of research take place within I Conquer MS. I Conquer MS has been around since 2014, and we've facilitated and promoted a lot of research since then. Some of the topics that we supported research on include COVID-19. We were actually really nimble. Back in April 2020, we launched a study, and that was like just as the pandemic was getting underway, and everybody was, very nervous and scared. And we launched a survey about how that was impacting people that we could then, analyze and share those results around. We've also done research on how the COVID vaccines are working in people with MS. And so that was another area where we were pretty nimble and collected samples from people and analyzed that. But we've also done studies on things like employment issues. What are the employment obstacles that people face? Or how do people feel when they get their diagnosis, especially if it wasn't done well? What kind of long-term impacts does that have? And we've also done work in the area of complementary and alternative medicine. So those are just a few topics. Most of our studies are available for everybody to participate in. They're very inclusive. And then speaking of inclusivity, and Mitzi, I'm glad you brought up the MS Minority Research Engagement Partnership Network. That is another thing that Accelerated Cure Project has been doing since 2016, which is to bring more attention to the fact that, right now, MS research is not very inclusive. People, especially from racial and ethnic minority groups, have been left out of MS research. They have not been sought after. They have not been included. And that's an issue. And it's also an issue for other groups, like people living in rural communities, like, the ones that you visit, Stu, or people with disabilities who may have a hard time getting to a clinic to participate in research. These are all groups that deserve to be included in research, and we're trying to find ways to do that. So, and when people aren't included, we don't really have a complete and accurate picture of what MS is, and that's an issue. So we have a number of initiatives to help make sure that everybody is included and everybody benefits from the results of research.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So obviously, I've worked with everybody, so I might be a little bit biased, but you guys are all doing amazing work. I want to pause for a second and talk about the importance of, patient-powered advocacy, right? One of the things that I've learned as a physician, I do not personally have MS. I have been in the space, helping and serving, people in the MS community for over 15 years. But in more recent years, I found that, it's important for me to do a lot more listening than talking. I remember the first Accelerated Cure Project meeting I went to. Stuart, you were there. And Holly, of course, you were there. But I really didn't talk very much at all, because I recognize that there are things that interest me. There are things that I may think people want to hear. And some of those things align, but it's important to have that patient voice really at the center of everything that we're doing, because certainly we as physicians and people who are not a part of the community may miss the mark. So let's just pause for a second and talk about the importance, or the difference, when the advocacy is really focused and centered on the people living with the condition and really centering that voice, versus when we're doing, it the other way, traditionally the other way around, where we say what we think people want and then we do that, and then people are like, yeah, we didn't want that.
I can start off if you like.
Sure.
So in I Conquer MS, it's very important that the research that we do and the other activities that we do are focused and centered on the needs and preferences and priorities of people with MS first and foremost. There are a lot of other, in general, research studies are driven by the needs and interests and priorities of the researchers or the medical community. And that's not the way we do it. So we have a bunch of boards and committees. I'm co-chair of the research committee, for example. We've got a board of a governing board and engagement committee and things like that. More than half of the people on those boards and committees have to be people with MS. And so my co-chair on the research committee is a person with MS. And then more than half of the people, at least half the people on my committee have to be people with MS. And that's how we make sure that, we don't go astray, that, we don't get off of the tangent, or we go off on a tangent onto something that somebody else cares about, but people with MS really don't care about. We also have an initiative within I Conquer MS called the RIDE Council, which stands for Research, Inclusion, Diversity, and Equity. And that's another one of our minority engagement initiatives. And that's focused not only in what I Conquer MS is doing to make sure that people from underrepresented backgrounds are included, but it's also a resource that other researchers can access. And it's people with MS that belong to underrepresented groups. And there's about 30 people. We started about a year and a half ago. We've been working with them and listening, like you said, Mitzi, listening, and we act on their ideas. We don't say, here are our ideas. What do you think? We say, here's something that needs to happen. What do you all think we should be doing? How can we do that together? Because we don't have the answers. I don't have the answers, but it's the experts, the people living with MS and who belong to the communities that we're trying to serve better. They are the ones who have the answers, and we want to hear those answers and then work together to implement them.
Yeah.
Great.
Anybody else want to chime in?
So I would like to. Well,
Sure.
Ashley, if you want to, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to, well, I'll go since
There you go. Ladies first.
Thank you. But at We Are Ill, Black women are centered, and, research shows that Black women have a 47% increased risk of being diagnosed with MS. But things are changing, with more people focusing on Black women in MS, the Black lived experience with MS, but we aren't waiting, for a seat at the table. We provide the seat at the table by hosting events like our wellness weekend and our member meetups and our virtual online programming. But all that to say, we can't do it alone. So we are really grateful for our partnerships with different organizations and pharmaceutical companies who recognize the importance of hearing from, our community and want to partner with us to improve the way that they work. So that's something that we are really proud of and something that we're definitely leaning into as we go into 2024. Yeah.
Okay, I'll try to do this. So we, again, it's a passion of mine to be able to get out to the areas that need it most. And when I say need it most, I'm talking about bringing the information for resources to people who just don't know. I mean, whether they were cut off from knowledge because of where they are logistically in the United States, in these rural areas that are, often far from people being able to attend programs or seeing things on the internet, or they just don't have internet capability because there is no internet where they live, or just helping out, people that are involved with other groups. We are sponsoring a lot of different groups. We sponsor things to do with one of the yoga organizations who you know about, I would believe. We also have done things with the MS Alliance of Virginia, and we support their annual program every year. They do a big event, and we're the primary sponsor of that. It's, last year, a week before Christmas, literally a week before Christmas, we had 125 people at a program there. And that's just because they don't get these kinds of programs. So we bring the programs to these areas, and they come out like gangbusters to be part of it. We Are Ill. I mean, I was asked if we could support We Are Ill's program, that weekend event, and we are doing it. When the MS Coalition, when we have our meetings for the MS Coalition, I'm the patient's voice. There's nobody else there that can give a voice as a patient. And in fact, there are times that when there are different people from the MS Coalition that are at ad boards with the pharmaceuticals, that the pharmaceutical gets around to the question that they want to know something specific about, MS patients' viewpoints or things to do with the MS patients. And there are other members of the coalition that just say, this is for Stuart to answer because they don't know. I mean, so, I'm bringing to the people what I feel that they need. We also have hundreds of volunteers from around the United States that get involved with our programs. And that's quite important. And, they want to be involved because nobody else has given them that opportunity to be involved. So, they many times learn from what we're providing, and then they set up a splinter organization. Even some of the support groups that are in underlying areas around the U.S., we are helping to support because we want them to be able to, get their people out and do things.
Yeah, I think it's so important, right? So the themes that I'm hearing here are collaboration, right? So I love the fact that, just because you have your own organization doesn't mean you don't support the other person, that, everyone is working together. Because ultimately the goal is to improve and improve the lives of people living with MS and empower them, to advocate for themselves. So I really love that. Before we kind of move on from this part, I want to talk a little bit about the importance of trusted information. So obviously, when I do my shows, I'm very selective on who I invite as guests because, certainly there are, many opinions. There are many ideas that people have out here on the internet, whoever's internet it is today, whether it's Beyonce's internet or, whoever's internet it is today. But I love the fact that you all do, although the patient's voices are centered, you do collaborate with the scientific community, right, to make sure that you're providing valid information, and so tell us a little bit about the importance of having trusted sources of information, that you're providing, or how you vet the information that you put out there to the community, because I know that you all put quality information out to the community.
Who wants to go first? I'm a guy, so I got to let one of the ladies go first.
You go, Stuart.
Okay. Wait, let me find. All right. Mitzi, that we put on a tremendous amount of programs. Many times people ask me, why do we use the same clinicians to speak at our programs? And my answer is simply because they are the best. That's my opinion. And it's very hard for me to go outside the corridor that I have set up to bring in new people. But when we do bring in somebody different to speak, we require that they send us their slideshow. Because for our programs, it's not like a pharmaceutical company that's providing a slide deck. So for our programs, we give the doctor or a nurse practitioner the topics that we want them to speak about, and then they have to put it all together. But they're not allowed to use anything that's signed off of by somebody else. They have to have everybody's permission if they're going to use somebody else's work. But there are times that we bring in that new person and they come out with these things that I'm like, where did you learn this from? I mean, really, where the hell did you learn this stuff from? One person tells me the other day that they want to do a dialogue and, their opinion on what a patient should be doing to take vitamin D. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't accept this. I really can't. If you can't say it correctly, then don't say it at all. All right. And they said, well, you're not a physician. I said, I've done enough of these programs to know what's right and not right. You know, or the slideshow may not contain all of the pharmaceuticals that are, all the medications that are currently listed. And because that person doesn't believe in it. But that's not the way you're supposed to be speaking.
Right.
You're speaking for the better of everybody, and let everybody have the opportunity to go back and discuss it with their doctors, not you play God to what somebody else should be doing.
Yeah.
So we find it very important that, yes, we vet the information. If I don't understand something that a doctor has in their slideshow, I just turn it over to one of the doctors that is associated with our organization, and they could tell me then yes or no whether or not that should be part of the content. So otherwise, though, the content is different among the different. I mean, you say something, Aaron Boston may say something slightly different, Ben Thrower again, slightly different, but it's all for the better of the community. And you guys are the experts. And so I have to rely on you all, to get that information back and get it to the people.
I love it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Like we are ill, we are patients. We aren't, neurologists. We're not MS specialists. And so we do rely on the authorities on MS, and in a way that kind of takes the burden off of us to, try to come up with something. Heaven forbid we give someone the wrong information, and then, we don't want that. We want to make people's lives easier and better. So we definitely rely on trusted sources of truth, like Dr. Mitzi, Dr. Rosenthal from Shepherd Center, the MS Society, Can Do MS, so many of our partners, because they know what we don't.
I love it.
Yeah. And with I Conquer MS, we focus on research results. So, we can very much ground what information we're putting out in the research results that's been conducted appropriately and vetted and peer reviewed and things like that. So we've got a newsletter that we put out. It usually has a lot of very good, high quality research content in there, as well as research opportunities that people can participate in. We have a webinar series called Chat with Chat, where we invite the researchers that we're working with to come and share the research that they've done or that they're working on with the I Conquer MS community. And again, they need to focus on, what their results showed, and they're happy to do that. But we feel it's important. We have a new project right now where we'll be developing our capabilities of sharing clinical trial results with the MS community in ways that are that people want to see them, and people want to see results in different ways. Some people might want to see it in a video. Some people might want to read a summary. Some people might want to see graphics. There's all kinds of learning styles, and so we're working on developing the capabilities of doing that so that people can access research results that they may want to use or they may want to ask their doctor about, but they would feel intimidated or not even know how to go and find the original scientific paper. We're going to break it down and let them access it in different ways. So we're very excited about that.
I love that, so, again, I'm hearing collaboration, as a healthcare provider, as a physician, it's very humbling to see so many amazing people in the patient advocacy community, and I think that we do have to sometimes take a step back and say, okay, is this something that people understand? Is this my opinion? Is this really, because kind of the mantra is, when you go to do something, you're the expert in the room, but I'm not the expert on that person's lived experience with MS. And so I think that we all have to approach it with a sense of humility, to understand, that we have to provide, good information, valid information in a way that people can understand. So I want to switch gears just a little bit because our time is, the time is going by fast. But I want to switch gears just a little bit and talk about what really was a turning point for you all. You all are very amazing, strong advocates. I see many people in my clinic who are newly diagnosed. I meet people all over the country, and they just are either afraid to tell their story. They don't know where to start. Like, what was that turning point to say, you know what, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to just make a difference, or I'm just going to, put myself out there and see how I can get involved? What was that turning point for each of you?
I want to jump in on this one.
Go for it. I see you're jumping in your seat. You just chomping at the bit. Go for it.
So a lot of us, after we're diagnosed with anything, it's like, why me, right? Why me?
Mm,
I seriously wanted to put me and my car into a canal. And I wanted to drive into a train on the train tracks or something. And I literally one day was so depressed about the whole thing that I actually was riding on a canal bank and very, very close to putting me and my car into the canal when I said something that I can't say on this program. And I said, Stuart, you got a damn big mouth. You've always had a big mouth. You're a New Yorker. Use what you know, use the skills that you've got, and help others get through this. And that's basically what I did. And so it was then that I contacted the MS Foundation. It was then that I contacted the MS Society. And I said, what can I do to help? It was then that I got involved. This was just a few months after diagnosis when I spoke with the president of the South Florida chapter of the National MS Society and found out that they were going to need a new chairperson for their walk for the next year. It was then that I stepped in. It was then that I got involved with a support group, a very large support group in South Florida. It was then that I made the decision to co-facilitate that support group. It was then that I said, I'm going to meet as many people as I can, and I want to help them get the information that they need, and I want to be a voice in the community, and that is what I am. And these days, for everybody that says to me, you're doing too much, I say, you're wrong. And the next year I do more than the year prior, and it just builds and builds and builds. Dr. Williams, you know that a few weeks ago you heard about it. I broke my leg. Yet that was after I did programs in Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee, and took time in Europe for vacation, and then found out I had a broken leg, which is why I was in so much pain, but I did not want to stop my travels. I wanted to just keep doing. I've lived with pain my whole life. This was just another pain. This was just another pain to live with. So now I'm in this giant boot that I have to have on for 12 weeks. And sleeping is more of a problem than anything, but I have a voice, and I will always speak.
Right. I love that. I love that. What about you, Ashley?
I think for me, I was journaling my whole diagnosis journey, just because a lot of it was confusing, a lot of it was frustrating. So I journal as that's how I, keep up with my mental health. And from time to time, people would just say like, oh, so, like my cousin is diagnosed with MS and they don't know anyone. Would you care to like talk to them? And I would always say yes. But one incident in particular really got to me because someone from my church community reached out to me and said, hey, we have this young lady who was just diagnosed with MS and she's taking it really hard. Can you talk to her? And I was like, yes, absolutely. I gave her my social media, my email, my phone number, and she never called. She never reached out. And I was it broke me because I'm like, she's suffering alone. Like it's like hard. Like, thank God I had a community, my family, my friends, my church to support me when I was trying to figure out what was wrong with me. But so that was kind of the catalyst for me to write this, my book, Jesus Year, because I don't know how many people out there just don't feel comfortable asking for help, or they have no frame of reference for what MS looks like. So that really lit a fire under me to like get the word out. And I felt like, yes, I can talk to people one-on-one, but if I put it in a book, if I record an audiobook, I could reach more people and kind of help them find their footing, when they're newly diagnosed. So that was the catalyst for me to write Jesus Year. And then after that, just through networking and just being a member of the MS community, I found We Are Ill. And it was something different about this organization. It's very centered on people who look like me, who have the same concerns as me. And so I was just, a member of that community. And thankfully, Victoria saw a need, to beef up the communications, and she knew that I was, that was my zone of genius, so to speak. And the rest is history. I'm really proud of the work I've done with We Are Ill to, help put out educational content, to beef up our newsletter, to all those things to give our community more insight into what life with MS can be like, and it make it not so like gloom and doom. Like, it's fun. Like, we are ill means like it's a double entendre. We're sick, but we're sick meaning we're dope. We're lively. We have fun. Like, we have swag. Like, so that was something that was really important to me when I found We Are Ill. It's like uplifting, and so that was yeah, all that to say, I'm really glad that I found We Are Ill, and I'm really proud of the work that we're doing to make people who look like me feel less alone on their MS journey, because it is not for the weak.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What
It's
about
great.
you, Holly?
Well, so I don't have MS myself, but like I said, I got involved in it because of a good friend of mine, and I've stayed in it. I mean, I got involved because of my friend, and also because of the interesting challenge that MS is. You know, there when we started, we were all about finding out what causes MS, and there were a lot of different theories, and we tried to go and research every single one, looking at the literature, and that was I was just very curious about that, and I'm still curious about so many aspects of MS. But I think what really keeps me working in this area is not that; it's really the people that I meet every day, and the relationships that I formed, and people with MS are, you know, by and large, just really special. They really care about, you know, making that progress, not just for themselves, but for other people. You know, they're willing to participate in research, or they're willing to, you know, do their own research and look things up and learn. I think part of that is due to, you know, they're people with MS tend to be diagnosed in that prime of life, you know, in their 20s and 30s and 40s, when there's just so much at stake and so many dreams and plans for the future that, you know, it's worth the investment to learn all about it and do what you can. And so I try to use my voice whenever I can, to augment those voices of the people that I've met who have MS. You know, I try to you know, try to make MS research representative and fair. I try to make sure that the researchers that we work with, or the pharma companies that we work with, are incorporating the voices of people with MS when they're designing studies or when they're planning whatever activities, you know, that they're not doing it in a vacuum, but that they're connecting with people who can really shape their activities to be the best that they can be. So that's what I try to do.
I love it. You know, and for each of you it's different, and for me, I'm sure if anybody's watched the show before or talked to me, you've heard, my story about advocacy, about presenting research and realizing after 10 years I was saying the same thing over and over again, but nothing had changed, and so I said, if I can be an agent for change, then I'm going to try to push the envelope and try to change as much as I can, and so we've made a little progress, but we still have a long way to go. But I think it's just so important for people to know that, you can make a difference, even if it's just sharing your story with those around you, right? You may not necessarily have a national or international platform, but certainly you can make a difference wherever you are in your sphere of influence. So I'd like to encourage people, to know that, and to know that sharing their story could make the difference in someone else's, journey and in their life. So thank you guys for sharing that. And so I think, as we're ending, what tips would you give people, in the community to, get involved in advocacy, and how do they get involved with the work that you all are doing? We'll start with Ashley.
Yeah, so I think as a patient, you have to educate yourself. There's trusted resources out there, MS Society, and just stay informed about the latest developments with, MS research. I personally have a Google Alert set up for multiple sclerosis, so whenever something, comes up, I'm like aware. And I
Ooh,
would
I bet that goes off all the time.
Right. Yeah, it's like I have to like pace myself because it's a lot. But and then also to be an active participant, speak up, about your needs, especially when you're talking with your care team, tell them about what's going on in your life. If you have new side effects, like to just tell them what you need, basically. That's what self-advocacy is. It's just speaking up and letting people know what you need. So I would say that. And then you can get connected with We Are Ill. We're on Instagram at We Are Illmatic. And we have our website is weareillms.com, where we have all those resources. We have articles from MS patients, Black women living with MS, about how they thrive with MS. We have from there you can get signed up for our newsletter. It comes out monthly. Yeah, those are my 2 tips.
Awesome. Stuart? MS Views and News.
There it is. MS Views and News. We encourage people all the time to speak for themselves. Don't wait for somebody else to speak for you. You got to have a voice. If you cannot have a voice, find the person that's in your community that can be the voice for you. When you go to doctor's appointments, bring somebody with you. You can't possibly remember everything, maybe not even because of cognition, but just because the whole stress of just being in a doctor's office. I mean, who the hell really likes going to a doctor's office, right? So,
I don't.
so there are things that you're going to forget, right? There are things that you're going to forget. There are things that you're not going to remember to ask. So bring somebody with you. Bring your notes with you. We have a tool that we designed years ago. It's on our website. You can fill it in online, or you can print it out and handwrite it all out. It's everything that's bothering you about multiple sclerosis is on that 2-sided sheet of paper. Print it, bring it with you, and but first fill it out. All right, and make sure that the doctor when the staff are given it when you arrive, so that way it's not a swinging door theory with the doctor. The doctor will see everything that you're there for, rather than on the way out. Oh, I forgot to ask you, and well, sorry, there's no more time for you today. So there are many things that you could do for yourself, but you got to be your own advocate. You've got to forget that you may be shy, and you really got to learn to speak up, because your voice has got to be heard. And for anybody that wants to get in touch with us, you just go on the internet and type in MS Views and News, not News and Views, but Views and News. All right. And there will be tens of thousands of articles that come up about the things that we've done.
Awesome. All right. We'll let you round it out, Holly. Research is obviously a passion of mine. We talked a lot about communities that are overlooked and underserved when it comes to research. My usual admonishment to people is get in where you fit in. If it's not a clinical trial, there's a survey. There's something you can do, something with diet, with exercise, with yoga. There are all kinds of things that you can do to get involved. So where would you tell people to start?
Yeah, exactly. I think research participation is so empowering, and it's a great way to advocate for yourself, but also advocate for everybody else, because you're contributing to the knowledge base that's going to determine the future and make it a better one. So, like you said, Mitzi, you don't have to take a drug, that they're trying out. You don't have to change what you're currently doing, although you can, and there are a lot of options for that as well. And that might be the right answer for you. But you can take surveys, you can participate in exercise studies, diet studies, you can do surveys, you can, contribute to new forms of MRI, so that we can learn more from those images that you have to get. There's lots and lots of studies that you can do. I would advise everybody to come to iconquerms.org. Everybody is eligible. Everybody is encouraged to participate there. And there are also ways to get involved in the leadership of that too. So if you're interested, you can sign up for iConquer and then contact us. You can ask your doctor. I don't know how many people, when they go to their doctor's appointment, I know the doctor's appointment is a busy time and there's not a lot of extra time, but if you have a moment, ask your doctor, are there any research studies you're aware of that I could participate in? And here's what I'm interested in doing. Mitzi, you've got the African American Registry, and people should definitely sign up for that. There's other kinds of registries for Hispanic people or other categories of people. So, if you belong to a special group, do some Googling or go to the MS Society site. They've got a research opportunities page, and you can look there. But yeah, there's lots of opportunities. So take that step. I think you'll be glad you did.
Yeah. Well, guys, our time is up. This has been an amazing and empowering conversation. I thank each of you for taking the time out to share about the organizations that you're also passionate about the work that you're doing, and how each of you are really making a difference. I'm so grateful for each and every one of you, and
Thank
the
you.
work that you're doing to help, the larger MS community. And, if anybody comes to see me, they hear your names, they hear about the organizations, because I'm a firm believer that all of us need to collaborate together to get the work done. So I appreciate you, Holly, Ashley, and Stuart, for coming on Brain Chat tonight. Thank you all for watching Brain Chat. For those who will be listening in the future, we appreciate you plugging into these resources. We thank our sponsors, Genentech and the National MS Society, and I will see you all again in 2 weeks. Thank you
Thank you.
guys so much. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you.